Can we get a roll call?
Present.
Present.
Commissioner Seifert.
Here.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to move on to the approval of the Planning Commission minutes of June 1st, 2016.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Public comment period. Each member of the audience may address the commission on any subject within the commission's business. Each member of the audience and each subject is limited to discussion of 3 minutes or as otherwise directed by the chair. Any public comment? No? Okay. With that, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is approved with one motion. These items are read only on request of the commission members. Should anyone, including members of the public, wish to discuss or disapprove any item, it must be dropped from the blanket motion and considered as a separate item. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That, we will move on to item number 3, which is the Westgate Marketplace Shopping Center amendment to a plan development permit at the northwest corner of South Blosser Road and West Battles Road. Staff, if we can get the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, Commissioners. Yes, the project before you is an amendment to the Westgate Marketplace Shopping Center. In 2008, the Planning Commission approved the Westgate Marketplace Shopping Center. It was a 132,000 square foot retail commercial center on a 13-acre site located at the northwest corner of Blosser Road and Battles Road. The Blosser Southwest Specific Plan calls for such a shopping center to serve the new neighborhoods that are located to the west and to the south of that 13-acre area. Since receiving the 2008 approval, the applicant has stated they've had difficulty securing tenants for the shopping center. At one point, the applicant had suggested changing the 13-acre site from commercial to residential to accommodate a residential project. Staff had recommended that instead of changing the entire 13 acres, that the applicant should consider possibly changing a portion of the site, leaving the Blosser Road frontage as commercial to save the neighborhood, and possibly changing the back portion of the site that does not front Blosser Road. Recently, on May 17th of this year, the City Council did approve amendments to the Blosser Southwest Specific Plan that changed the specific plan and the zoning on a 5.5 acre portion of the site to high-density residential to accommodate the Westgate Senior Apartment Project. The remainder along the Blosser Road frontage stayed as commercial, about 7.6 acres. That City Council action, the land use change changed the configuration of the Westgate Shopping Center, the Westgate Marketplace, literally negating that plan development permit. So that site plan was generally erased by that City Council action. It would take a new plan development permit to reestablish the smaller reconfigured shopping center. At this time, the applicant has stated they don't want to do a plan development permit. They want to continue to seek tenants, but in the interim to a new plan development permit, the applicant is suggested pursuit of a conceptual site plan. So the conceptual site plan would illustrate what the reconfigured shopping center would generally look like, but it wouldn't provide the detailed review of the details of a full-blown plan development permit. So we bring forward a permit amendment, an amendment to the original permit that would provide conceptual review of the modified Westgate Shopping Center. As a part of that, it brings to the point, what would the city want to see with the modified shopping center? So when the applicant does come forward with a plan development permit, what would the city's expectations be? So as reflected in the staff report and the conditions, there is a list. And just to kind of summarize, the neighborhood scale shopping center should be designed in a manner to best serve the immediate neighborhood. A future retail center should have street presence with as many buildings as possible located at the street with parking lots subordinate, meaning the parking lots would be located to the side or to the rear of buildings. The shopping center, a future shopping center, should provide an attractive tree-lined street frontage. It should provide a walkable environment with pedestrian connections within the project and pedestrian linkages to the outside of the project, the surrounding areas. A future shopping center should provide a hierarchy of driveways, meaning there should be a main primary driveway extending off of Blosser Road with subordinate secondary driveways off of the side streets, La Brea or Battles. Again, a future shopping center should provide a high-quality architectural design with attractive storefronts facing the public streets. It should provide abundant landscaping and tree planting, particularly in and around the parking areas. There should be a limitation on drive-throughs, and the project of the permit has been conditioned to have a maximum of 2 drive-through restaurants and 1 drive-through for the major, potentially a drive-through drugstore, or a drugstore with a drive-through lane. The future center should provide a landscape median along Blosser Road, and it should provide a pedestrian path that would connect from the Westgate neighborhood to the west of the project site, the single-family neighborhood established to the west, through the Westgate Senior Project to connect to the commercial center on the east. So with those things, staff believes a future shopping center would carry out the vision of the city and the vision of the Blosser Southwest Pacific Plan, and those conditions are reflected in the preliminary permit amendment.
Thank you. Do we have a presentation from the applicant?
One other thing I just want to
Oh,
elaborate
yes.
on, and my apologies, and that is just, and I think the applicant may elaborate, but recently, after the packet went out, the applicant did submit a letter requesting some modifications to the permit amendment, and I think those are provided to each of the commissioners with staff's responses. So in response to the applicant's letter, staff has modified the draft permit amendment to reflect the request of the applicants. So those modified conditions still maintain those same goals and objectives of the city, but they they allow for a little bit more flexibility. So staff would be recommending approval of the permit amendment as modified, and staff believes that the permit conditions in association and along with the conceptual illustrative site plan should establish the applicant's desires as well as the city's for a future plan development permit. And with that we will conclude our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you can state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Tobes, Chairman of the Tobes Group, and we are located at 21 East Victoria Street in Santa Barbara. I want to thank the staff for their work on this project. There have been a lot of moving parts. We started out with a much larger shopping center, which I think do you want us to go to your slide? That probably can't be turned 90 degrees, but that was the original shopping center that was approved around 2007, 2008, when the market just suddenly collapsed for everybody and everything. And when things really began to improve, we found that there were other shopping centers coming into the area. This was a pretty large one, 130-some thousand square feet, and we felt a better use was to reduce the size of it, keep the frontage as a shopping center with about 65,000 square feet, and find a better use for the property immediately behind that. We came up with the idea of a senior housing project because there's just a continued and growing need for senior housing in Santa Maria and elsewhere. This concept went to both the Planning Commission and the City Council, and they both supported the idea of converting the westerly part of this to apartments, which is what will be before you in a few minutes. With respect to the shopping center, and we can go back to the shopping center plan there, as you can see, essentially what we did is just cut off the back half of that and leave what was the frontage along Blosser Road pretty much in the orientation that it was before. We understand that what is being approved tonight is just a conceptual approval. It certainly is not final approval because we're not nearly at that point yet. We really need to have tenants lined up so that we can properly design the buildings for them. On the other hand, the shopping center was approved, and we started out with an approved shopping center, which we're now we're requesting to modify. We believe that the demand is picking up with the amount of housing which is being built in that area. We finished 140 houses in Lavinia, 211 apartments in Siena. Heritage Square is building out 299 units. At Westgate Seniors, we'll have 193 units, and there is more housing going across the street. So we are starting to get inquiries for the shopping center, and we're optimistic that we will be able to move forward with that in the not-too-distant future. Once again, understanding that this is conceptual, there are a couple of concerns that we have that may or may not be the desire of the Planning Commission to change now, but you'll get another look at it, as will we, when we get our final plan. One is that the staff report essentially says the project is somewhat overparked. We actually have 281 spaces when the zoning calls for 269, so that's about a 4% increase over the zoning requirement. So we think the amount of parking is about right. It certainly can be tweaked a little bit, but it certainly is not grossly overparked. The second thing that we were concerned about, quite concerned, is that the plan that was approved before had a signalized intersection at the midpoint of the shopping center where the focal entrance is located, and we're quite concerned about the fact that that will no longer be signalized. We're concerned that traffic will that's the only place in the shopping center where traffic can cross the median to make a left turn to go to downtown, and traffic on Blosser Road moves at a pretty rapid rate, and we hope that when the final plan comes in, we can justify the need for that signal. There's also, my understanding, a new shopping center which is going to be built on the east side of Blosser Road, the Equistapace property, which will have a driveway matching that location. So I think the amount of traffic at that particular focal point will be sufficient to justify a traffic signal then. So we will, I'm sure we will be revisiting that in the future. But we hope the Planning Commission keeps an open mind on that subject. The focal driveway is actually somewhat wider than what we have shown. We've shown 3 lanes here for a left turn lane, a right turn lane, and a turning lane. And we will take that into consideration in the final design. Once again, understanding that this is a conceptual plan and the final design will come at some point in the future. And there was a comment in the staff report that drive-throughs are generally discouraged. We understand that. We originally showed 2 plus a drive-through for the drugstore. We've shown the same number, and we certainly agree that that would be the maximum. So those essentially are all our comments. We're happy that this is coming back to the Planning Commission for a conceptual review and look forward to working with you to finalize the plan as we develop tenants for the center. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Seifert?
Yes, Mr. Tobes, the signal, is that taken out by the city? Is that something that we've done?
The staff, you can show where it would have gone there, Peter. There was a median break at that point in the center because northbound traffic on Blosser has no way to turn into the center except at either end rather than at the center, which is really the focal point of the shopping center. So it was appropriate then, and we think it's still appropriate Lori may want to say a word or two about that.
Yes, Lori Tamura with Urban Planning Concepts. Our concern is focused on the revised conditions on sheet that were provided to you, and it's 3B. And the midpoint of 3B, which talks about driveways, there's a pretty direct statement that says there shall be no signalized intersection entrance at any of the project driveways. The previous analysis through the Planning Commission and staff justified a signal at this location, realizing two things, that it's a pretty long block, and having U-turns at each end was problematic, and there was a commercial center being designed across the street, which would be part of the Aquist-Apache specific plan area, and cross-traffic this would be a good location for it. So we're concerned about having this direct statement in this set of conditions, because one of the reasons this whole set of conditions is so important is Mr. Tobes is trying to market this project. And having a signalized intersection mid-block is an important feature for any commercial enterprise coming in. We request that this one sentence be deleted, and when we come forward with the design of the project as ultimately proposed, we know that we will have additional traffic analysis with that, and by that time, the Aquist-Apache project will probably have more information about what's going to be happening across the street. So we think that there's an opportunity here to defer this discussion until we have more definitive information. But again, the City Planning Commission and City Council approved a signal at this location in the past. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Tor, my mind went blank. Dang it. On the Aquist-Apache property, we don't have we don't know what they're going to do, what they're going to plan, where their driveways are. Is this something that if we design this for the Tobes project, that they will design their project accordingly, because there's going to be that street light obviously there? So it could be used for both?
Just for your, Madam Chair and to Commissioner Seifert, we have submitted the specific plan amendments for the Aquist-Apache project, so it is becoming ripe for process, and so I think more information is going to be coming forward for the update analysis on what's going to be developed on that property. The intent was to match the signal for both sides of the street to allow for that cross-traffic to happen. Otherwise, everything is going to be directed to La Brea or at Battles, and I think you're going to see more impact at those intersections than you would if you provided this cross-block traffic signal.
Your firm is designing the Aquist-Apache project also?
We are processing that application and, doing the specific plan and working with the family for what their plans are for the property.
I'm not sure La Brea is actually a viable intake for this project. I built a project on that street, and we have Titan out there now. We have huge trucks. We have there's a international hauler in there down the way. He's got a big yard. I tend to agree that that's not an excellent place for entrance and exit. Thank you.
Just to add to what Lori said, I think removing that sentence doesn't commit the city to a traffic signal at all. It just leaves it silent, and when we come in with a final project, it will be decided on its merits, rather than saying now there should be no signal there. So we'd like you to delete that one sentence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Now we do.
If I may, just in closing, we agree with the amendments that the staff has prepared in their memo. I think both Mr. Scott and Mr. Gilly responded appropriately to the concerns we had, except for that one provision about the signalized intersection. And we hope that you'll move forward with approving this project with these amendments.
Thank you.
And then I do have one question. I guess so ultimately, if we approve the the packet with the revised conditions, but then we make the decision that that one sentence should be removed to deal with it down the road, you're square with that? You're happy with that?
Yes, and I hope staff's, concurs with that.
I mean, we can always come back to it and
yes.
put it back in down the road, but at this stage, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Peter?
There's a variety of reasons why the topic of the signal came up. Without trying to go through it all here, what I would suggest is that the sentence be changed to there is no approved signalized entrance at any driveways at this time. If they come forward with information in the future, or if we learn that the other side of the street may have a development there and that it does meet the warrants for having a signal, then it opens that up. But it's just saying right now, with the information now, it's not. The reason we think some sentence needs to be there is because the prior approval for the larger shopping center did have the allowance for it. So we don't think if we're silent, we don't think it'll be a complete unknown. So that would be our recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Additional questions?
No, and you're good with that? Leaving
With that word smithing, I think it leaves the door open for both sides.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to close a public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Would you guys have any comments?
Yes, thank you,
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Dickerson.
I agree with the applicant that this is something we really need to have focus on. I drive Blosser every day. It's a very busy street, and not having a signal there, without knowing more facts about it, to me, immediately doesn't sound quite right. So I would like to have a chance to look at this when we see the overall project, and if they're designing it in conjunction with the project across the street, I think that's a perfect segue into why we have to have this discussion.
Okay, Mr. Dickerson?
I agree. I'm glad that staff and the applicant were able to work through the issues. And I agree with what Commissioner Seifert said, and just adding that additional word seems to square everything with everybody and leave the door open for down the road. So I think it's prudent.
Yeah, when I saw the initial conditions, I was concerned, and my first question was, is applicant accepting these requirements? So I was glad to see that there was some modification. Of course, the traffic analysis is crucial, because that's going to guide us into the direction that we're going to go, as well as the adjacent project. So with that, can I get a motion?
If you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and move that the Planning Commission approve amendment A 2016-0011 Westgate Marketplace Shopping Center amendment to a plan development permit at the northwest corner of South Blosser Road and Western Battles Road with the revised conditions as provided by staff, number 3 and 4, pages 3 and 4.
I second the motion.
I believe it was just page 3, right?
There's also a 4.
Yes,
They gave us 2, but we're only changing the verbiage in 3, Madam Chair.
Yes,
yeah, just for clarification, the 3 and 4 refer to the item numbers.
yes.
Right,
So-
the page number 3 and
yes.
4.
So
though.
the item that says 4 is for the next item
Yes,
number.
that's,
Oh, I
so it's just
apologize.
3.
I apologize. Yes.
Oh, I
yes,
was
obviously.
incorrect also. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
And I,
Sorry.
can the commission clarify the added language about the signal not being approved at this time?
Right, with the added element that the word approved shall be put in to the sentence, there shall be no signalized entrance at any project driveway on 3B.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I get a second to that?
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. And with that, we're going to move on to item number 4, which is the Westgate Senior Apartments Plan Development Permit on the north side of Battles Road, approximately 350 feet west of South Blosser Road.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. And this is the 5.5 acre site that we just discussed that was recently changed by the City Council. And the applicant's going to go through the project in detail, so I'm going to be very brief. As mentioned, City Council approves the changing that site to PD R3 high-density residential to allow the Westgate Senior Project. Staff believes the project is well-designed, and the senior housing will be beneficial to the community as a whole and fit the location very well. So again, the applicant will elaborate a little bit more. Excuse me. Again, the applicant requested a couple of minor changes in the plan development permit, and those have been reflected. One was a clarification on the walls, and staff has modified that condition just to be crystal clear. The project is next to the, what we talked about, the aforementioned Westgate single-family residential neighborhoods to the west. And if they build a wall first, we only need one wall. So the condition just makes it clear that one wall, that the senior housing project wouldn't have to build a second wall, so one wall. So that would clarify that. Secondly, in terms of height, the applicant wanted us to just clarify a little bit the condition for the maximum height. Currently in the R3 zone, the R3 zone allows a maximum of 35 feet. The taller buildings are above 35 feet in height. And so the condition currently states that the project would meet the maximum allowable height in the R3 zone. We've added some language that would just say the maximum height unless otherwise permitted by the municipal code. And again, what that would simply mean is the Planning Commission has reviewed and sent forward to the City Council a zoning text amendment. If passed, that zoning text amendment would allow, in certain circumstances, additional height in the R3 zone. So assuming that text amendment passes, staff could come back and just do a minor amendment to that condition or to the project to allow the additional building height. So just that little bit of additional language would allow the project to move forward with more height if necessary. Again, with that, we'll just turn it over to the applicant. We do believe it's a very good project in the right place, the right location, and we'll let the applicant elaborate on the project details unless you have questions.
Well, I have one minor addition. Just want to note that for that, as was stated, if the ordinance change is adopted by council, in this case, staff believes it's the added height is acceptable and would actually do an administrative amendment. So I just want to make that clear that that's the intent. And right now, just a little bit of that part of the roof and a little bit of this part of the roof is actually over the height limit. So we think this is the perfect example of why a little bit of flex is positive. So we just want to make it clear that is the intent as we move forward.
Thank you. Okay, with that, can we move on to the applicant presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to be here again to present the Westgate Seniors Apartments project. I think some of you have seen this before, either study session or otherwise. We are in agreement with all the conditions. We just wanted to walk you through this to point out a couple of the features of the project. Starting with the elevations here, as Peter said, there is some articulation in the roof. We think it improves the appearance of the buildings by having that, and we feel confident that the city ordinance will be modified so that that can be approved. You can also see that there's a substantial amount of articulation on the facade of the building, the ins and outs of the buildings, which we think add quite a bit to its character. Next. I think we're going the wrong way, maybe. No? Okay. Maybe I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, I think I'm going the wrong way.
It's just the elevation was your cover slide. So you just have to cycle through the rest of the...
Okay, I think we're going the right way now. There are 5 residential buildings. The L-shaped buildings are 3-story buildings with elevators. The other 3 buildings are 2-story walk-ups. And then the building on the west side of the pool is the location of the clubhouse. This is the statistics on the project. There's been some discussion about the amount of parking that we are providing. I want to point out several things. First, this is not a low-income project. It's actually for moderate-income seniors, 55 years and older. And we will be recording a deed restriction which provides that all residents have to be 55 years or older. But in that cohort, most of those residents will still be driving. And so we think having approximately a 1-for-1 parking ratio is appropriate. I think that you'll see that there's a mix of units. I can show you, we'll see there are 2 one-bedroom plans, 2 two-bedroom plans, 2 studio plans, so a total of 6 different unit types. Whoops. I'm going to have to go back to school, I think, on this. Oops, just lost the clubhouse. That's the entrance to the clubhouse. It has a very residential feel to it, certainly much different than Hancock Terrace, which I think you saw, which is quite Art Deco, but this is more residential in feeling. That's the design of the clubhouse. There's a gym, a yoga studio, a lounge, offices for the resident managers, and I think it will be a very nice facility, very much like the other clubhouses which you have seen the Tobes Group develop in Santa Maria. That's a picture of a project in Santa Barbara. Willow Springs, that's the Semita Gardens, another Santa Barbara project. This is Sienna, off of Blosser Road, essentially across the street from Westgate Seniors. That's the interior of the Sienna Clubhouse. Once again, a very residential kind of a look to it, much different than the Art Deco that we have at Hancock. There's Hancock. Some of you may have been there to see it. If you haven't, I hope you get to see it soon because we think it's a terrific project and it is renting very rapidly. That's more of the Hancock Clubhouse. This is the last slide. You can see it's rather faint there, but on the north end, the right side of the project, you can see sort of a red line there. The staff very much wanted to see a pedestrian connection between Heritage Square and the shopping center, and we've drafted an easement which we will be submitting to the city shortly and to the Heritage Square Homeowners Association, offering them that easement. So it will be provided, and it will be moving forward in that direction, assuming the Homeowners Association and the residents want to use it. I expect that they will, and I think we will have filled our responsibility by offering the easement to the Heritage Square residents. With that, it completes our presentation. I don't know whether Lori has anything else to add. We're very excited we're finishing up Hancock Terrace. We're getting ready to start this, and we expect to break ground this year for the project with approval from the Planning Commission tonight. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Tobes.
Thank you.
Any questions from the commission?
Nothing from me.
No? Okay. Do we have any public comment as to this project? No? Okay. With that, would the applicant, well, he's already made a comment. Would he like to make a closing statement? No? Yes? Okay. And with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any comments you'd like to make?
It's a beautiful project, well needed in this area. I've read through the notes. I haven't found anything that that I see as a big problem. That area is the egress and that's the only problem, is getting in and out of those darn places, across that bridge and that type of stuff. But other than that, it's an excellent project. And being over 55, I can slow down enough to make those bridges if I happen to live there. So I don't see that as a huge issue. Thank you.
Mr. Dickerson.
Like other Tobes Group projects, this one's well put together, well conceived of, is a needed project, and I appreciate the fact that it's here.
Yeah,
So
it's a good project.
I hope it moves forward quickly.
You know, as every other Tobes product, it's very well made. So I'm glad that they're bringing it to the city of Santa Maria. I do have a question, though. When do I get to move in? Okay, with that, I'm going to ask for a motion.
Can you move?
I'm going to try. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Westgate Senior Apartments Plan Development Permit, on the north side of Battles Road, approximately 350 feet west of South Blosser, PD 2015-0020.
Can I get a second?
Tim?
With the inclusion of the applicant and the staff's page 4 changes that are acceptable to both staff and the applicant.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Two great projects.
With that, we're going to move on to other business. Number 5, report on city council actions.
At a recent hearing, the city council reviewed the Libertine appeal of the Planning Commission's action. I think, like the Planning Commission, the council saw that it had a lot of challenges, particularly involving the issue of property rights and the ownership of parking spaces. So eventually, the Planning Commission's decision to deny the permit was upheld on a 4-1 vote, mirrored what the Planning Commission vote was. Libertine is still able to use the space for everything other than having the public-oriented uses, for storage of their product and for the bottling. That's all allowed, but they won't be able to have a tasting room. I think, like staff and the Planning Commission, the council also encouraged them, if they could find a place downtown, that they would be likely embraced. Also, the 4th of July is coming up, and just a reminder that there are new ordinances in place that the use of fireworks is limited basically just to the 4th of July. And the city is having its own fireworks show that can be viewed at Pioneer High. It can likely be viewed from a lot of places in the city, but there is an event at Pioneer High on the 4th. And that is it on the council actions.
Could I ask a quick question about that? Maybe from legal. Philip?
From legal, Mr. Cinco.
Mr. Cinco? Oh, okay.
And I was just wondering if it would affect Mr. Tobes' ride home, because I just got the notification. I apologize.
That's all right. And it was just a quick question about the fireworks. It's being limited to just the 4th of July. But
Safe and sane
the safe and
fireworks.
sane fireworks. I guess the question I have is there was already difficulty by code compliance in actually catching anybody. Isn't it just more difficult? I guess I'm trying to understand what the real impact of making that decision is.
I'm making what decision to limit it?
To limit it even further if we're not catching people in, are we actually citing people?
Well, just two things. It's the police have actually been out. I learned that they've actually been out proactively and they've responded to some calls, and in some cases they've been very close and responded, but I don't know if people are aware that they're being looked at and they're not lighting off fireworks for an extended period of time, or if they have people who are spotting or whatever, but the police have been unsuccessful in citing any people lighting off illegal fireworks at the moment. They're certainly going to continue trying to discourage anybody, and if somebody's foolish enough to try to have a half-hour show, they're going to get caught. As far as the other thing that the council did was to approve third-party administrative citations. They're not criminal citations, but they're like a private person arrest, where if two people will swear and fill out, well, not swear, but sign a complaint and say that they've witnessed a violation for fireworks, an officer, even if he or she wasn't present to witness the violation, they will issue the administrative citation with a $1,000 fine. And obviously the problem with that is getting two people who want to, sign something against one of their neighbors. Some people may want to not do that for relations. Other people may fear retaliation. So we're hopeful that we'll get some of them.
Is that an anonymous thing?
No, it's not
other-
anonymous.
No?
You need to face your accuser even in an administrative form. It could be anonymous if people can call into the hotline and report. But like I said, when the police are arriving, the shows are not lasting, the fireworks are not being lit off for an extended period of time. And so it's like they're arriving and there's no sign of anything and they're not able to verify. As far as the safe and sane, I just think that it's very entrenched in the community now. A lot of nonprofits depend on those sales, so it's a politically charged issue about whether to allow them at all. It's a controversial
So
issue.
it's a revenue generator for nonprofits.
And it's been around a long time,
Yeah.
and they are legal in the state. There's a lot of opinions on that, but the council did want to send a message, and staff recommended that they reduce the amount of time that they could be set off to 1 day.
And we did get a report from police that the number of complaints about fireworks going off has decreased. So while people may not have been caught violating the rule may have at least caused less people to have the fireworks all year.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything because I hadn't heard that. I'm glad that's the case. In my personal experience from my neighborhood, I know that it's less this year than it was last year at this time, and I have to think that's because of the public education campaign the city's put on, and the.
I would guess it's the fine.
I'm sure that has something to do with it. People definitely don't want to get caught because that's a stiff fine.
It's about a third of what they spend on the fireworks, I believe. Yes.
I do have to say, though, the city has done a good job. It has been very effective because people are talking about it, and it makes people aware of the fine, and it is a substantial amount.
Yeah, and I'd like to think also that people may not have been aware that certain sensitive residents, would be affected by it. Veterans with post-traumatic stress or autistic kids or pets. I don't think people realize how it affected pets as well.
I'm very interested to see in my neighborhood. I'll let you know after July 4th.
Okay, well, we're very interested in that. Thank you.
We have quite the neighborhood, yes.
Okay. Any other city council actions?
No.
Okay. With that, we're going to move on to oral reports from the Planning Commission and staff. No? None? No oral reports?
Just that Libertine was, I believe there was an editorial page
Yes.
in the paper today. It hasn't gone away. It's still being talked about quite often.
Right. And I was going to say, I didn't know if it would be appropriate to speak with the newspaper about the vote so that they can get, an insight as to why it was voted a certain way.
Yeah, a lot of times it doesn't seem like they're emphasizing the impact to the other people there. They seem very focused on the beer tasting place, on Libertine itself. So.
That's the way I've read everything. It's because I had to recuse myself from the situation. I am seeing that it's pretty biased, that there really isn't anyone supporting the Planning Commission or the City Council or why they voted the way they voted. It's it would be nice if that could come out.
I'm not sure why it is, as you said, why it's biased by the reporting, but in
Right.
any case.
And
It
it's-
seems to be.
And it's been brought up to me in court and in different places, this article throughout the day, and the previous article before that. So it may be something that we want to do to speak to them so that they get a more,
I mean,
equal opportunity.
I mean, one would hope that the local press and writers would ask the questions, but we can't make them. And just because I think you asked the question about the commission being able to speak to the press, after it's moved on past the public hearings and a member of the press asks the commissioner for input on why they made a vote, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. I think,
Well, the thing about the article was that it was implying that, this is how other businesses can expect to be treated at the city, and that's incorrect. And so
yeah.
for that reason, it was alarming that they would make that type of statement towards the planning commission and city council and how we treat businesses in our city.
yeah.
And
well,
so that's a serious statement to make.
It is something, though, that while it might be rare that it's directed at the commission and the council, it is pretty common that that the city is, in general, and staff frequently is accused of not being pro something because of enforcing rules and making a judgment, trying to balance property rights and such. It is, unfortunately, I think, part of what we're all now.
Right, and I understand that, but at the same time, at what point do we make a comment so that we can refute that statement and actually lay out our opinions as well?
Commissioner Hernandez and other commissioners. Sorry, I said that wrong. It's late. Chairperson Hernandez and commissioners.
Chairperson.
Your rights as, you have somewhat limited your rights as your First Amendment rights because you serve on a board, but you have not abdicated them completely. You're absolutely able to write an opinion piece or a letter to the editor or make public statements, as Peter said, after a matter's been concluded and it's final. That I think it's perfectly appropriate. As a policy matter, I think it would be rather unprecedented to make a statement jointly. Certainly, it's something that could be discussed and agendized, but I would think that you would probably respond to this as individuals.
Okay. Any additional questions, concerns?
Up to you, Madam Chair.
That, okay. Well, with that, thank you for letting me know that I can speak with the press about my opinion. Mr. Seifert seems to share the same sentiment, and I'd like to communicate that, this specific project had very specific constraints, and so that's why it wasn't approved, at least with this commissioner, and the city council expressed their opinion as well, and I don't want local businesses or outside businesses that are outside the city to feel that we're not going to take on new innovative ideas.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was making that comment and statement.
Well, and I think that if one chose to watch the deliberation of the commission, that would have been clear.
Most people don't want to sit through a
Yeah. I mean,
planning
I watched
commission
it,
meeting.
but, yeah, Madam Chair, she's right. I mean,
I mean-
most people aren't
Yeah.
fancy.
I mean, in
Stewart.
a roundabout way, that statement goes towards those that write stories without checking all the information. Not that the public, we expect them to always watch all the meetings and such, but if one is going to report on what happened at a meeting,
I believe they were present at the meeting. At least the planning commission meeting, they were present.
yeah.
So anyway, Mr. Seifert, any additional?
I'm good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and our next meeting is July 6, 2016. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who knows why there's a...